हे दोस्तों, वेलकम टू अपना कम्युनिटी। ये वो जगह है जहां आप अपने असली पोटेंशियल को एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं। देखो, सबके पास स्किल्स होते हैं, पर क्या आपके अंदर वो स्पार्क है जो आपको कामयाबी की ऊंचाइयों तक ले जा सकता है? अगर आप सोच रहे हैं जॉब चेंज करने के लिए लेकिन रेज्यूमे सेलेक्ट नहीं हो रहा, या फिर इंग्लिश में इंटरव्यू देना थोड़ा चैलेंजिंग लग रहा है, तो फिक्र मत कीजिए। यहाँ हम हैं आपके साथ, आपको सपोर्ट करने के लिए। अपना कम्युनिटी में आपको मिलेगी बेहतरीन कम्युनिटीज जहां आप अपने प्रोफेशनल स्किल्स को सुधार सकते हैं। चाहे आप एक्सेल, टैली, जीएसटी में माहिर बनना चाहें, या फिर आप खुद एक ब्यूटिशियन या डिजाइनर हैं, तो यहां आप अपने काम को शोकेस करके दूसरों को टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स देते हुए आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। अपना कम्युनिटी में आपको मिलेगा मेंटर्स का एक खजाना और बड़े इन्फ्लुएंसर्स का साथ, जो आपको हर कदम पर 1-to-1 गाइड करेंगे। यहां आप ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं अपने फील्ड या इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक ग्रुप्स, जहां आपको ऐसे कई लोग मिलेंगे जिनसे सीख के आप वो गलती ना करें जो वो कर चुके हैं। ऐसे लोगों की जिन्होंने स्टार्ट किया था एज एग्जीक्यूटिव्स एंड आर नाउ सक्सेसफुल मैनेजर्स इन देयर डोमेन्स, जो आपको आगे बढ़ाने में मदद करेगा। यहां आपको मिलेगा वो सही डायरेक्शन जो आपकी करियर को नेक्स्ट लेवल ले जाएगा। तो लेट्स अनलॉक योर पोटेंशियल टुगेदर। अपना कम्युनिटी में ज्वाइन करें और अपने सपनों की ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंचने का सफर शुरू करें।
Good evening, guys. Piyush, are you here? Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Cool. Piyush, I'll just give you a quick, give them a quick introduction and hand it over to you. So, thank you everyone so much for joining in. We'll be starting today's session now. If you're attending these sessions for the first time, I would like to start with a quick introduction. This is part of Apna Community Exclusives, partnered with UFUS. It's a webinar series we have been hosting for the past couple of months. We host regular sessions at 7 p.m. on weekdays, Monday to Friday, and between 3 to 5 p.m. on weekends. And we cover a wide variety of subjects like mobile app, Android development, Gen AI, interview prep, resume creation, upskilling, etc. So the main objective of these events is to help you grow professionally and help in the advancement of your career and get better jobs. So today's session is about creating a mobile app in 10 minutes with React Native. So for this session, we have Piyush with us. To give you a quick introduction about Piyush, he's a full stack developer with over 4 years of experience. He specializes in React Native. He's created mobile and web applications and is skilled in React.js, Android development, .NET, and Python, to name a few. He also writes blogs. He's created a lot of tutorials. He's even reviewed a few books. And the best part is he has several years of experience as a mentor, and he has helped freshers and working professionals alike. We're glad to have him with us today. Thank you so much, Piyush, for joining us. Before I hand it over to Piyush, quick reminder, guys, whatever questions at any time you have, please drop it in the chat box. We'll be addressing it as and when possible. We'll also give you an option to unmute yourselves in between when Piyush is taking the question, so you can ask the questions directly as well. आपको कभी भी कोई भी सवाल हो, आप chat box का इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. If you're logging in from phone, you can see the 3 dot options on your phone. Click on that, and in call messages is where you have to go to see the chat box. अगर आप फोन से लॉग इन कर रहे हैं तो आपको 3 डॉट का ऑप्शन दिखाई देगा. वहां पे इन कॉल मैसेजेस करके ऑप्शन है, उस पे जाइए, आपको चैट बॉक्स दिखाई देगा. आपको समय समय पे अनम्यूट करने का भी मौका दिया जाएगा जब क्वेश्चन एंड आंसर टाइम चल रहा है. So I see few people have raised your hands. I'll just request, please wait. We'll cover the questions in some time. Please give us some time while we start the session. Piyush, without further ado, handing it over to you.
Thank you, Siddharth, for such a good introduction. I'll just share my screen and then I'll start. Hi, everyone. I think you can see my screen now. Yeah. So no matter what your background is, tech or non-tech, whether you are a student or a working professional, if you have a tech degree or not, today we are going to talk about a technology that makes it easy to get into mobile app development. So as Siddharth has already mentioned, like I did my BTech in computer science from IPU, and I have around 4 years of experience. And I also reviewed a book on React Native called Simplifying State Management. So this is going to be today's agenda. We'll talk about what is React Native, how it is different from other technology frameworks, and we'll also create a mobile app. Uh, like the title says, creating a mobile app in 10 minutes. And then we'll talk about the scope of React Native, the career opportunities, and then we'll also have a dedicated Q&A section. So let's start with what is React Native. So React Native is a technology that is developed by Facebook that allows you to build apps using JavaScript and React. So React Native is built on React. React is also a library built by Facebook. So using React Native, you just have to write your code base in JavaScript, and then you can run your app on your Android phone also and your iPhone also. That is on iOS also. So it simplifies mobile app development. In this, we create reusable components. You'll heard the word components again and again. And the best part is the development cycle is very fast. So I'll just give you a task. Can you identify all these applications? Like if you can like write them in the comment
Piyush,
section.
I think your screen is stuck. Okay. Oh, now we can see. Yeah.
Yeah. So like can you all identify these applications? So like the first one is WordPress, then we have Tesla, then Amazon Kindle, Discord, Flipkart, Shopify, Microsoft. Like Microsoft Stack also has Teams, and like all these apps have been built using React Native. Yes. So thousands of apps are using React Native from big companies to startups. And if you want to explore other apps that are built using React Native, you can check out React Native docs. You just have to Google React Native docs, and there's a showcase section in the React Native official website. Now, like type of mobile apps. So there are mainly three categories of mobile apps which you see on your Google Play Store or Apple App Stores. So the first category is native apps. Native apps are the apps that have been built using native tools. Like for Android, the native language is Kotlin. And for iOS, it's Objective-C and Swift. So if you are making your applications using these technologies, then your app will be called a native app. And if you're using technologies like React Native, the thing that we're going to talk today,
हेलो हेलो
and Flutter,
अरे हमारे सुनो
then we call them hybrid apps. And then there's a third category, which is
मैं
a
सुन
web
तो दो
view.
हेलो
So web view is not a app. It's basically, let's say you have a browser and you are opening a website in it, and it is giving the user a fake mobile app appearance. So like before we go like ahead, like does anyone have any doubts in these basic things we have talked about? I'll just look at the chat section.
There are a couple of people who have raised their hands.
Okay.
We'll start with Shivraj. I think he raised it initially. Shivraj, go ahead. Please ask your question.
हेलो हेलो
Yes, yes, Shivraj.
हाउ आर यू
Rizwan,
Hello.
if you have any questions,
Rizwan.
please ask. This is your final warning. You have been interrupting. We'll be removing you from the meeting if you interrupt again. Anyone else who has raised their hand, Sunita or Neha, you would like to ask a question? Guys, you can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. Cool, Piyush. I think we'll
Okay,
just wait for
I
that.
think no question. So if you are building your application, your software through any framework, any technology, these are 5 generic steps that you'll come across. Like first, you'll have to do the environment setup on your development machine. You'll have to install the software called code editor or IDE in which you'll write code. And then you have to create a new project and run the project. And after you create your project, run your project, we have some debugging tools. So if there are any bugs in our software, we can find them using debugging tools and testing tools. And after we are done with all these 4 steps, we finally have to deliver our project to our client. So in case of websites, we have to host them on a domain. And in case of apps, we have to publish them on Google Play Store or Apple App Store. So like when we're talking about React Native and how React Native differs from the native platforms, so we'll just talk about all these 5 steps again in comparison. So if you're building native Android apps, that is using Kotlin and Java, or if you're building native iOS apps, that is using Objective-C or Swift. And the third category is if you're building React Native apps using Expo. So in case of native Android, you can build your application on Linux machine, Mac OS, Windows. In case of native iOS, you should note this, that you can only build native iOS applications on your Mac. If you don't have a Mac, you cannot build native iOS applications. But in case of Expo, like if you have Linux, Mac, or Windows, whatever machine you have, you can straight away build cross-platform apps. That is, applications that will run on both Android and iOS. And in case of native Android and native iOS, we have to do a lot of environment setup, and it takes a lot of time to install heavy softwares like Android Studio to configure path, to install JDK. And in case of native iOS also, we have to install Xcode, and we also have to set up emulators. So this is a very like time consuming task, and you should have good systems with good specifications. But in case of React Native, you just have to install Node.js, and you can just start creating your mobile applications that will run on both Android and iOS. So the React Native way is very quick. That is what I want to highlight. And like after you have created your application, like your development machine is set, environment setup is done, and the code editor is also set. In case of native Android, we use Android Studio, and in case of iOS, we use Xcode. That these are the default official softwares. And in case of React Native, you can use any code editor, and VS Code, that is Visual Studio Code, is recommended. And in case of Android is a GUI software, so you just have to make some clicks and you can create your application. Xcode is also a GUI based software. You have to make some clicks and your application will be created. In case of React Native and Expo, we have to write some special commands to create an application, to run an application. So this is the difference. The React Native is the CLI approach, the command line interface approach, and the Android iOS is the GUI approach. So both the approaches are doing the same thing. Using both, we are just creating applications and running applications. The only difference is in one way we are just using some GUI based softwares, and in the other we are using, since it's the CLI approach, we'll have to write commands in our terminal or command prompt or PowerShell. And there is one more difference. So the Android Studio and Xcode have inbuilt tools, a lot of tools. And in React Native, since we are using VS Code, so VS Code also have some tools, and Chrome also has some dev tools. And the good part with Expo is that Expo is a different company, and Expo has a lot of tools around React Native. So you can publish your mobile applications, the APK and the iOS equivalent, with one click. And in case of native Android and native iOS, you have to manually configure all these things on your own. So like we just talked about how React Native differs from native Android and native iOS. Now we'll see like what are the components in React Native. So the way I am showing all these comparisons, you get an overview about how React Native differs from native Android, native iOS, and what are the features. So it will help you in understanding all these things. So like in this case, React Native has a view component. Like in so these are four columns. We have the React Native component and what equivalent component would be in Android, what equivalent would be in iOS, and the web equivalent. So you might have noticed in web we have divs. We have a div and we use divs to div is like a container, right? In React Native we have a view that is equivalent of a div. So if you create a view in React Native, it will automatically call the view group that is basically the div of Android, and it will call the U view. So UI view is the equivalent of div in iOS. So basically, we are just creating the React Native components, and on runtime, React Native itself is on an iOS device, it will call the UI view, and on an Android, it will call the view group. And this is done on fly. So like just to look at this, so let's say you have a iOS application and an Android application, both have the same UIs. You just created this using your React Native. So this is how it will look. So as you can see, it looks almost similar. So we created a component in React Native. React Native itself is calling the Android equivalent on an Android machine and the iOS equivalent on an iOS machine. So like, do you have any question till now? You guys can raise your hands. Neha has raised her hand and Rekha also. So Neha, you can like unmute yourself and you can ask if you have a question.
हेलो
Hello.
हाँ जी सर
Yes, Deep. आप कोई क्वेश्चन है आपको?
क्वेश्चन है क्या है जॉब में इसमें
नहीं, आपको क्या जानना है?
ये जॉब के बारे में जानना था जॉब का दिया है ना आपने ये
बेसिकली हम इसमें एक टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं जिसका नाम है रिएक्ट नेटिव,
अच्छा जी
जिससे आप एंड्रॉयड और आईफोन दोनों के एप्लीकेशन बना सकते हो।
अच्छा जी
ठीक है, अभी आप अपने आप को म्यूट कर लो, फिर हम बाकी लोगों के क्वेश्चंस आंसर करते हैं। So I have a question in the chat. Deepak asks, like, which has good performance, native or hybrid apps? What can we do to make hybrid apps more performant? So yes, Deepak, by default, like since native apps, the company, let's say Android, the native language of Android is Kotlin. So Google has defined all the libraries, all the files in Java and Kotlin. Kotlin is now the official language. Earlier for Android it was Java. So so native apps are more performant, but React Native and Flutter they also offer a good performance. Like I would say, like if Android native is on 100, React Native can offer around 80 or 90 plus. It also depends on what kind of application you're creating. If the application is, let's say, very graphics heavy, then obviously native would be better. But there are a lot of cases in which we have like we have a lot of applications just have some images and some text that we need to render, and so all of these things can also be done with hybrid applications like React Native apps and Flutter apps. And if we are getting, let's say, small performance impact by using hybrid application, we also see that we are saving a lot of cost. You just have to write the JavaScript code and you have your Android app also ready and the iOS app also ready. So it saves a lot of cost and time and effort. So it is worth it. So guys, if you have any question, you can write in the chat. So like this is a very important question, like why I started using React Native and like why do I recommend it to like newbies or newcomers? So I started my Android journey 8 years ago when I was in college. So I started with a Android course on Udemy. And if you have worked on Android, so there are a lot of prerequisites. You need to know the basics of Java, Kotlin, object-oriented programming. You'll have to do the Android Studio ID setup on your system. You'll have to do the environment path setup. So there are a lot of variables. Just even if you want to create a simple application, you have to know a lot. And if you do not do all these things, then you'll not be able to create applications. Whereas in React Native, the learning curve is very low and you can quickly set up your development machine and start building your applications. So this is the reason why I recommend React Native to everyone. And React Native is also open source. So it has a very active community. You'll find a lot of projects of React Native on GitHub and other places. And React Native has other features also. Like we have already talked about the cross-platform compatibility. That is, you have a single code base, and you can have your Android application, iOS application, and not only Android and iOS. You can also build your apps for your TV OS if you have an Android TV or Apple TV. Or right now, React Native is also working on Watch OS, the variable OS. So you can also create applications for variable OS, that is your smartwatch, and the automotive OS. So in our cars, the operating system is different. So in short, React Native supports like so many platforms. Like even you can also create Windows applications for like using your React Native code. You can create your Mac OS applications also. And all these things use the same concepts of React. Plus, you also need to know a little native language specific to the platform you're working on. And apart from that, we also have hot reloading. That is, as like you just have to make some JavaScript changes in your code, and when you hit the save button, your software will update automatically. And like we have already talked that we have a big community and a big ecosystem of React Native, since it is being like supported by Facebook. And as you can see, we have like there are more than 100,000 stars on GitHub and like so many contributors. And it also has some performance benefits, and the new React Native has also launched a new architecture. So in the previous architecture, there were some performance issues, but right now, like it is comparing to the like native apps also. Like the performance has become so good. So like now I would like to ask you, like, does anyone know how many smartphone users are there in India? Any guess? Okay, Simran. So I'll also give a summary in Hindi also. So, like, can anyone guess how many smartphone users we have in India? Please write in the chat. 300 million. So we have around 100 crore smartphone users in India. And this is the market share. As you can see, the Indian market is dominated by Samsung, Vivo, MI, and Oppo. So the Android is dominating the operating system, and we have around 84% smartphones in India that have been built on Android. But Apple is is an individual company, and it has 16% market share. And Apple phones are also like their sale is increasing every year. So they are like continuously grabbing more and more portion of our market. So if you are so as you can see, we have 100 crore users in India. So if you make your applications cross platform, just imagine like how many users are going to the number is so big, and how many people can use your applications. Like you can just imagine if you can target even a tiny portion of these users. uh, and if you let's say if you create applications and you upload them on Play Store and you have Google ads in that, you can also make a lot of money with this. So I'll just summarize what all did we cover. So we talked about React Native. React Native is a technology, and it is an open source framework that has been built by Facebook. And now, since it is open source, a lot of individuals around the globe contribute to it. And in React Native, we write our code in JavaScript. So we just have to write our code in JavaScript, and you can have your Android and iOS both applications built. And we also saw that a lot of companies use React Native. And for React Native, you just have to install Node.js on your system, and right away you can start building your applications. Now our list, the next task is to I'll show you how we can build our application, and you can also follow along. And before doing this, uh, let's see in the chat. Like, does anyone have any question? Please write in the chat if you have any question. So now I will just show a demo, like how you can create your application on your web browser itself. So there's a company called Code Sandbox. You just have to Google Code Sandbox. So Neha has raised a hand. Ashish says, what type of project should we build in React Native to get placed in current market conditions? So Ashish, if you're starting with React Native, or if you're starting with any technology, like if you should first start building the UI only. Let's say just choose an application. Like there are a lot of applications that we use daily. Like we have Blinkit, Zomato, Amazon, WhatsApp. Just choose one application that you like the most and try to make a clone of its UI. Okay, you have already built a to-do application. So in like when we're looking for jobs, if you look at the JDs, you'll notice a lot of companies ask that you should have experience with payment gateway integration, Google Maps integration, Firebase integration. So make sure that you just go through the JDs, and like if you have worked on Google Maps or Firebase or payment gateway, then that is sufficient. And it's actually, the more projects you build, the better it will be. Like you'll have a better chance to land a job. I have also built many projects, like because we learn a new thing in every project we create. So I'll just open Code Sandbox.
Piyush, if you're sharing something, your screen is
Yes, I'm just sharing in a minute.
okay. Sure. Ashish, you have any question apart from the one you put in chat box? Your hand is raised. If you want, you can unmute yourself. Others also, guys, any questions, anything, you please put it in the chat. We have ample time to address all your questions. So please utilize this time you have with Piyush. You can also unmute yourselves. You've been given that option. Yeah.
So this is a site I want you to open, Code Sandbox. So using this site, you can create React Native applications in your browser itself. So I've already opened the site. Click on sign in. Yeah, I'll just share my screen again. Hmm. Okay, so open Google and search Code Sandbox. You just have to click on the topmost link. And when you open this link, you'll get an like sign in option. Just sign in with your Google account. I've already done the sign in. Get started for free. And after you have created your account, you just have to go on the top right section. There is a button called Dev Box. I'll click I'll click on Dev Box, and in templates I will write React Native. So I get this option, React Native with Expo. So I'll call this 10-minute app, and I'll click on create dev box. So this is like a VS code on your browser. So like it has generated a boilerplate code, like it has generated a demo project for us. And right now I'll just show you like how this single code base, how this runs on web also, on Android also, and on iOS also. So I'll just click on start preview. And this is the JavaScript code. I will just remove everything and I'll just write. So as soon I just removed all the dummy code and I just have a text which says hello world. Now I will just refresh my browser. And you can see the JavaScript updates in real time. And we can also run this code on our Android and iOS phones. We just have to install an application. I'll just show you the name of the application. So this is a Expo Go app. You just have to install this app on your Android or on your iOS device. And if you have an iOS device, you have to scan this QR code. And as you scan this QR code, the app will automatically load on your phone. So I'll just connect my iOS device. We'll go back to the previous screen. Okay, so this is too basic. I'll just change some code. I'll make a counter application. So I'll write here counter. And I'll just have a button also, which will increase the count of my current counter. I'll just make these changes, then I'll open it on my phone. Because just seeing hello world is like, you'll not be able to play. So like, you don't have to notice the jargons or the terminologies. They are very basic and you'll understand later if you want to get into React Native. I will say the initial count is 0. And this is my counter variable. So I will show it here. And I have a button and button can be pressed. So button has a on press function. The increment 1 will increase the value by 1. Count plus 1. And I'll create another button which will decrement the values. So first we'll just test this in our web, and then we'll run it on our phones also. So I have not saved the file. I'll just save the file and then I'll reload. So we have a counter application and we have two simple buttons to increment and decrement the values. So when I click this will increase the value, and when I click on decrement, it will decrease the value. So as you can notice, there was no time wasted in like waiting for the project to build. The same happens in your Android and iOS applications also. So I will just open my phone. I'll again share my phone screen. I'll just stop sharing and then I'll share it again. So where is the screen? Screen. Scan this. Screen mirror.
Guys, while we wait for Piyush to load this thing, what he's trying to show. Any questions, anything, please use the chat box. You can also unmute yourselves. can parallelly answer your questions. Anyone, any question? Please utilize this time.
Okay, we have the app in our phone, and like we already saw like how it looks in the browser. I'm just scanning the QR code, and then I'll just turn on my screen mirroring. Can you see the screen, the phone screen? Can anyone confirm? Are you seeing my phone screen? Is that the current screen that you're seeing?
Yeah, Piyush.
Yeah. So I just scanned that QR code, and the Expo app automatically fetched the JavaScript from the browser. And now if I click on the increment button, this is increasing the counter values. And if I click on the decrement button, this like doing the same thing. I can also scan, if I have an Android phone, I can download the Expo Go app, and the Expo Go app on my Android also will download all the JavaScript code. And if I make any changes, all those changes will be reflected in real time. So I just wanted to show you the demo that you just wrote your code in JavaScript. If you just notice, this is the app.js file, JavaScript file. And then the app was built for web also, for iOS also. And if you run this in your Android, that will also work. So like, do we have any questions? I'll just open the chat section. If you have any question, you can write in the chat section. So I'll move back to the PPT.
Piyush, like I'll ask one question. It's just out of curiosity. Nowadays, you have GPTs producing codes within a matter of seconds. So how does it
Yes.
impact traditional mobile app developers? What do you think?
So like, I think that is a very good question, that if GPT can write code, then why should we have developers, right? So
Yeah.
I think like I also use ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot and Gemini. So all these codes, so like if you're talking about Android or iOS or any native platform, so all these native platforms, let's say Android has new version of Android 14 that is coming. So the Android 14 will have new features, and all those data will not be like available on ChatGPT or Copilot or other things. So there are a lot of variables that are involved in making mobile apps. So like uh, the mobile ecosystem is very complicated, and just by using ChatGPT, the ChatGPT cannot replace us. But if we use ChatGPT, we can make sure that we are able to do our work faster and in a more efficient way. So using ChatGPT helps. Like if you want to understand a piece of code, how does it work or what does it mean? So like we can take help of AI to create better applications in even lesser time. So that is a that is how I look at it at AI.
Got it. I think you have some questions.
So I think we can just like summarize the section and just conclude it.
You have some questions in the chat.
Acha, I have some questions in the chat.
Yeah.
So I'll just open the chat. I'll drag this window. Yes. How to change splash screen icon and app icon? Okay. So Ashish, like when you're creating applications using Expo, there is a app.json. So there is a config file with Expo also, which has a predefined path. If you look at the path and if you up in your project directory itself, if you add your new file and just mention the path, it will use your new splash screen and new app icon. So the thing with Expo is it makes all our development easier, but we can also have our custom behavior. All the custom behavior that we were having when we were building our native applications, whether it was Android, iOS, we can do all those things. So, like, I hope I answered your question. So we have the configuration of everything, like splash screen, app icon, or other icons also. And Deepak asks, do we have any platform like Code Sandbox that provides both Android and iOS simulator? So I am aware of Code Sandbox, and there must be competitors also, but I'm not aware of the competitors. So you'll have to look yourself. You just have to do Google search, and I'm sure they'll offer you plenty free simulators for online and for offline. In if you have a Mac OS, you can have the iOS simulator, and you can also have the Android simulator on your machine itself. So, like, do you have like any other question by anyone?
Please, Piyush is there for a few more minutes. Please utilize this time. Anything related to the coding and the this thing he showed so far, or generally as well. He's in the industry. He's in the education industry. He's in the development industry. So anything related to job or career or anything, and utilize. We have a few minutes with him. You can also unmute yourself if you want to ask some questions directly.
I think Ashish also asked one more question. I'll answer that question also. So a lot of time goes in building APIs, but I want to only build it only in React Native. So Ashish, API is just a way to communicate to our servers and database. So the backend developer will build your API in, let's say, Node.js or in any platform. But if you don't have a backend developer and if you're making your demo projects, then I would recommend you can use Firebase. Firebase is a backend as a service. So, like, you just have to make a few clicks and you'll have your backend server running, and you can focus on building your like application. I hope that answers.
Meanwhile, guys, I have also pinned the feedback form. Please do fill in that. I've seen a lot of participants here and also throughout the session, but I see only one entry in the feedback form. Please, it helps us. It helps the speakers as well to give them feedback on how they can do better every time. It helps us also while hosting the sessions. We'll bring speakers like Piyush again. So for that, the feedback is necessary. So please fill the feedback form. Yeah, any questions, anything?
And like I would also add one thing, like if anyone is getting started with React Native or React JS, please make sure that if you're getting started with React Native, your React JS skills are good. You can go and check out the React JS official docs, and you also need to make sure your JavaScript skills are good, and start by creating simple applications which only have UI. Just try to clone the UI of other applications, and when you are done with it, you can try out API integration. If you cannot build APIs like yourself, you can check out the Google Firebase. So, and just keep on making new and new projects, and you'll master React Native. That is how I have done it.
Any advice on like what projects they can start with? I know one counter app you showed.
Yeah. So you can you can implement. So if you have a simple to-do application, you can have a login page. You can build authentication. You can build, let's say, email password authentication. Just use Google Firebase. So Google Firebase will add the backend logic. You'll just have to use the predefined functions in which are specified in the Google Firebase docs, and then you'll have an application that has authentication also, that is authenticated, and you can also have the user base. You can know like who all are using your application, or you can also use, there are third party packages, like there's a company called Sentry. If you want to debug like how your application is being what is the performance in production. And Google Maps and payment gateways are very standard things that developers are expected. Right now people also work on like chat applications. Firebase also has a APIs where you can use those APIs directly, and you can have a chat app, or you can also have a video streaming app. You can also implement phone OTP. So if you if you'll notice that while implementing all these things, a lot of companies have already built the core logic of, let's say, Google sign in, video streaming, or chat. You just have to use the third party APIs. So you just need to know how you can consume the third party APIs. Deepak says, what is good to create the apps, like local first or backend required? So Deepak, if you are starting, I would recommend just create local first applications and store your data locally only. And after you gain mastery in that, then you can use the backend. Then you can go to Google Firebase, and after you master Google Firebase also, you can build your own custom backend also. Like you also have ChatGPT nowadays. So all these things are really easy. Like if you want to do, you just have to write a prompt and you can understand everything. And like whatever apps you are creating, please add those apps on your GitHub and write a good documentation, so that if you're applying to jobs, like even if I'm hiring interns for my company, so I look at the projects. What all have they implemented? Do they have a GitHub account? Or are they adding the documentation properly? Okay, so Simran, you are from a commerce background. There's no problem in that. So React Native is very easy. Like my sister is also from commerce background. I've also given her a demo of React Native. So you just need to make sure you have like basic JavaScript and HTML skills. Just make sure that are clear, and you can become a mobile app developer. Even if you don't want to do it professionally, you can do it for hobby. And even if you want to do it professionally, there's no obstacle. Right now, companies hire based on skills and the projects that you have made. So I have a lot of people who have come from other background also and are developers. And like one thing that I'm very sure, like React Native is so good that like you can quickly create applications. And if you quickly create applications and if you see that they're being used by people, that is rewarding, and you'll feel very satisfied that you actually built something, and like it was that easy. So that is also very like a positive thing that motivates you to keep on building more and more applications.
Great. I think we're ending on a good note. So sorry to call you out, guys. Deepak, Simran, you guys put a positive note on the comments. Please put it in the feedback form as well. So with that, we'll conclude today's session. Thank you so much again, Piyush, for joining us today and for sharing your expertise with us. though it was a very quiet audience, but I believe most of them found this session useful, and we were able to address all the doubts and queries. Thank you everyone for joining in and making this a successful session. A quick reminder again, a final reminder from my end, please do fill the feedback form. It really helps us. You can also visit the Apna website, the link I put in the chat. You'll find the recording of today's session and also the previous sessions that we have organized over there. You can also check for upcoming sessions where you can register. You can also register in the Apna community if you're a part of it, if you have it in the app or website, go there and see all the upcoming events over there. As mentioned earlier, we'll have these sessions every day. We have the next one tomorrow at 3 p.m. So I hope to see you all there. Thank you again, Piyush. Thank you so much. Hope to see you here again sometime. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Take care.